it's quite striking how in municipalities across the country, these local interest groups that often only run in one municipality have done pretty well and got 10, 20, even 30% in some cases.
In the build-up to the 1 November local government elections, the CRA conducted a poll, the results of which were released on the 30th of September of this year. How did the CRA fare in its prediction of the final election outcome? Well, what follows is a short extract from our webinar on Friday, the 5th of November, where we reflected back on our initial call and looked at the final results of those elections. If you would like to become a client of the CRA, you can join us via our 30-day free trial. That's linked in the description below. Enjoy. The dust has finally settled on the elections. There was, I think, some very interesting results. And before the elections, we at the Center for Risk Analysis did some polling. So we had a very systematic and rigorous approach to polling, as we always do. Sample size of about 830. And we also did that in September of this year. So that was a really good snapshot. And based on those polling numbers, we then made some projections. And our call was as follows. So we had the ANC at 49%, the DA at 22%, EFF around 12%, and the other political parties at 17%. How did we do? Well, we were pretty close. We were within the margin of error on the ANC. Many other polling companies and analysts had the ANC at or above 50%. We were a bit more bearish on their prospects. So we were about 3% off on the ANC. So we have, as I mentioned, long been predicting the terminal decline of the ANC. And that's since about 2012 that we've been arguing that. But I think that's very telling that the ANC even underperformed against those estimates. We were pretty much bang on the nose with the ANC, with the DA, I beg your pardon, 22%. I think the DA, the final count was about 21.6%, if I'm not mistaken there, Marius.
Yeah, it's about 21.8 or so, something like that.
21.8. Okay, so just obviously bear in mind that this is the aggregation of all of the voter results. What really matters is what happens at each particular municipality or metropolitan area, but this is the sum total of all the votes. EFF, their actual outcome was about 10%, so we're 2% off there. But the most notable feature of these elections, as we'll argue, is the growth in other small opposition parties, small interest-specific parties, parties that appeal maybe more to a narrower ethnic or linguistic identity, and other kind of more localized issues. So that proportion grew to 21%. So Marius, I mean, do you have anything to add here just in terms of polling? And I think, polling numbers tend to fluctuate quite a bit, but we were quite happy with the accuracy of our predictions here.
Well, the only thing I'd add is that following things like Brexit and the victory of Donald Trump in 2016, pollsters started getting a bit of a bad reputation, but I think they showed that we were pretty much bang on. But also, as you say, I think the most important thing to look at is now 1 in 5 voters vote for a party that's not one of the big three. And this isn't necessarily, a party that's in parliament like the Freedom Front Plus or the IFP. As you say, it's these local interest groups. And as we go on, we'll talk about these groups, but it's quite striking how in municipalities across the country, these local interest groups that often only run in one municipality have done pretty well and got 10, 20, even 30% in some cases. So I think that's something that's definitely going to be a feature of South African politics going forward. These small localized parties who come on, who campaign on very local issues. And I think that's something we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on in the future.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
But let's look ahead, Marius. What does this all mean for the future of South African politics? And we've got a few, first of all, key takeaways, which we pretty much already mentioned. We've got this very low voter turnout, higher levels of disaffection with the electoral process. We've got the ANC, they're submerged underneath that 50% mark. That's, I think, very bad for them. Just in terms of image and perception, I think image and perception is everything in politics. And to be seen as a party on the decline, I think, is not good for their election prospects as we run up to 2024. Opposition politics, the DA has shrunk. EFF has only grown modestly, but the overall share has grown. And I think there's fragmentation, but also growth. I think that's a very interesting combination of trends. And then we've got these local interest parties, identity-based parties. And then I think the really key issue there is that we're starting to see a bifurcation of politics in South Africa between, on the one hand, this kind of old model, the Charterist model, if you will, the ANC and its transformationist agenda, its national democratic revolution principles, which are essentially Marxist-Leninist combined with African nationalism. That ideology is under strain and is losing legitimacy. It's not working in terms of the practical application of services, but also the resonance that it has with citizens and voters. So that's on the one hand. But then on the other hand, you've got this new, very amorphous, very chaotic group of all these opposition parties that could potentially coalesce into the other side of the binary, kind of an anti-ANC front, if you will. So I think that's going to be really key and critical as we build up to the elections in 2024. So what next? We're going to see the continuation of that voter turnout declining. We're going to see, we're very confident now, as we predicted in 2012, that 2024 election is going to be a real watershed moment. We may still see the ANC as the largest party across many provinces and nationally, but they're going to be below that critical threshold of 50%. Opposition politics, we're going to see ever more fragmentation. That's not good news for the DA, but the good news for the DA is that they could still be the largest opposition party, could form the core of this new emerging front against the ANC and playing an outsized role there. Coalition politics is going to become the norm. Better get used to it now, but it's also going to be very unstable and won't necessarily translate into better services. And we are going to see potentially this new UDF, not the same as the UDF of the 1980s that Cyril Ramaphosa was involved in, but UDF, lowercase u, lowercase d, lowercase f. Yeah, but as Marius was at pains to point out, we're going to still see, I think, a lot of stickiness in terms of rural support for the ANC. But that's not really a demographic trend that's going to help the ANC to grow. That trend is going to be against them in many ways. So Marius, we had some questions here as we were talking, and I think I'm just going to scroll through them right now. Greg had a question which was, with national elections next year, what are your thoughts about the rise of Action SA? I think that's really the question on many people's lips. Do you think that Herman might play his cards close to his chest and not force any kind of mayoral issues or anything like that? He might try play for playing a dominant role in a potential Gauteng coalition?
Yeah, I think, as I was saying, like a place like Joburg is the very hard place to govern, especially if you're in coalition. So I think it would probably make sense for Herman Mashaba to, if he does get approached to be part of governing coalition, to maybe sit it out and just be an effective opposition in Joburg and the other cities where they won seats. I mean, I think they won seats in each of the municipalities they participated in: Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, eThekwini, Newcastle, and KwaDukuza, I think, on the KZN North Coast. So I think the Action SA, it all depends what happens over the next couple of years. I mean, if you look back to COPE, they won, I think, 7% of in their first election in 2009. Everybody thought this is this new, constitutionalist opposition to the ANC, this kind of new Mbekiat ANC wing that split off. And we saw what happened. It got, I think, only 3% in 2014. Or not even, I think, about 1%. Now got 0.5% in 2019. It's still getting a handful of seats around the country now, but it all depends, I think, what happens over the next 3 years, whether Mashaba can make an impact. He's certainly shown that there, in the political market, there is appetite for what he's kind of selling. So there's definitely some energy, at least from these very early indicators. He could be the kind of crossover party that people have been trying to find for years in South Africa, that appeals to Black and white South Africans. So, but yeah, as I said, all depends what happens over the next 3 years. And I think South African politics is tough. And Herman Mashaba probably already knows that of being in South African politics. But the next 3 years is going to be telling, I think, whether Mashaba can make a real impact, not only in Gauteng, but nationally.
As you can see, it's critical that you have the right advisors by your side. If you would like to become a client of the Center for Risk Analysis, please do get in touch with us via the links in the description below. We have several subscription categories available to corporate subscribers as well as individuals. My name is David Ansara. Until next time, take care.